Hi. Fucking idiot. I click start streaming and then I just start browsing Twitter because I'm fucking so ADD. It's ridiculous. Anyway, sorry. I was just, I got distracted and I just need to close Photoshop down and stuff because it uses up too many resources. I need to fucking buy an external GPU for my computer and shit. So, anyway, hi. It's Friday. I'm doing something dumb. I'm just going to tell a quick story because the Coffee with Taya stuff is mostly just riffing and seeing if there's any jokes in it and that sort of stuff. But so what I thought I'd do is share a funny story with hopefully a little bit of a message, right? So I'm not telling these stories by accident. In fact, I'm telling them because I think that it's inherently linked to this whole problem we have as parents, as educators, and this whole fucking cult and like social media, which is the ability to mess with someone builds character. Like being messed with, okay? Fucking get your words together. Being messed with, right? Even if it might upset you in the moment. I can't believe I'm this old person saying this. Okay, boomer, okay, vagina. However, it builds character, okay? Resilience. It builds resilience. And there's people that are, there's still academics trying to figure out what builds resilience, right? There's still studies on this. And it's not fucking hard to figure out, okay? Resilience is built with experience, okay? And adversity. Okay, and being under a little bit of stress from time to time and learning from it. Okay, our hormones and all those things are designed around fight or flight. That's how we are wired. Okay, we are wired to find things hard, to learn from things, to have a bit of stress, to fucking, whatever. And somehow in all of this bullshit, we've overcorrected, right? And created a whole, and again, it might be different, right? 30 years from now, my own kid might be sitting there on their hologram channel talking about how their experience and their kids fucking don't make sense either. But at the same time, like these kids, there's a whole generation of kids, and again, removing class out of this, okay? Middle class, fucking rich kids who are the least happy, the least tough, the least resilient generation that we've ever seen. And I know that every generation says that about the generation after it. I'm saying this is a real fucking overcorrection. Okay, like if you've got teenagers, right? They don't really have any fucking real problems. Okay, aside from your obviously legitimate things that continue to happen. Of course, those things happen, but they're inventing fucking pain. They're looking for things to be upset about, right? And that's why I want to tell you some of the ways in which I've been fucked with, right? I want to tell funny stories about my childhood. I have a very unfunny childhood in many ways. But like everyone's life, it's a mixture of good and bad. And I think that what we have done is created a whole fucking thing of this unintended consequence, of just coddling these kids to the point where they don't get a mixture of joy and upset, right? And so they're left. Again, okay, I'm going to digress, but it's like that. It's like an entire fucking generation is sitting on antidepressants, right? I was on Cymbalta, and I go on and off SSRIs as needed, and I do struggle with depression, but at the same time, I try not to go on those unless I absolutely sort of am not coping, and I stay on them for a period of 3 to 6 months max, and that is because I cease to feel. Okay, it has a numbing effect, and I think that when you try to create these bubbles and put them on medication and all of this sort of stuff, and I know I sound a million years old, but I'm just saying that life is very much a mixture. Okay, great art comes from great pain. Okay. And again, I know that there's this whole fucking woke Nanette thing where, you shouldn't have to suffer to create art. That's not the point. I'm not saying that we should fucking torture people so they write good fucking, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is that we are robbing a generation of the minor adversities, right? Whatever happened to what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, okay? Again, read Jonathan Haidt and Greg, I cannot pronounce his last name, but The Coddling of the American Mind, which is exactly this, right? Which is that we've created this thing where people just aren't resilient anymore. They can't even cope with minor things. When I was first, when I first separated from my marriage, I was dating, and I dated a guy once who, he, for all intents and purposes, grew up pretty privileged, right? He had a degree. He went to private university. He had, he had a good profession, and his only real adversity was that he had ADHD, right? And again, I'm not dismissing ADHD because it's hard, okay? But it was bizarre, okay? Because, and maybe that's just because I've had such a fucking messed up kind of life, that I have a very low threshold for those that make mountains out of molehills, okay? And he just wasn't equipped, because he made ADHD so much part of his identity. He was so fragile. He could not cope, right? But he had a parental safety net. He had all of these things that he didn't realise, that others didn't, right? I've never had that kind of fucking safety net ever, right? I'm fucking sink or swim, and I have been my whole life. But, and I try not to compare, experiences, but I really did observe that he was quite a bit younger than me. Anyway, but I'm just saying, there's something about growing up with loving, I know it sounds really weird, but loving, it's almost like the richest, luckiest, most privileged kids. It's almost like we're wired to look for struggle, right? And where there is no struggle, we invent it, or find, latch onto it. Okay. I've used this example before, and I've had a tweet travel in the last 2 days, again, where I talk about how, fucking literally the only identity fucking the disadvantage that there's a person has been the fact that she's got brown skin. But it's her whole identity. She's wealthy, she's professional, she's degreed, she's got postgrad qualifications, right? And she's still fucking miserable. And it's just like, but now she's gone into this whole decolonized fucking critical theory cult. And it's just like, dude, you have more opportunities and more fucking privilege than I could ever have imagined. And you're sitting there telling me that you don't owe, you can fucking publicly scold me for being white. Fuck you. Okay? I acknowledge racism. I acknowledge that you've got probably a different struggle. But Jesus Christ, can we inject some fucking class analysis into this stuff? Right? And also, it's interesting because, when you talk about, I don't want to, the problem is I'm talking in generalities while thinking of someone specific, but I've got to be careful because I'm not singling anyone out. I'm talking about this as a phenomenon. But, Indian, for example, right, where, in India, there's a caste system, right, where, they're probably wealthier and better off and have more privilege and more status and more servants and all of that stuff. If you come from the upper fucking caste system over here, right, you have more fucking wealth and privilege than I do. Trust me, okay? I come from the underclass. I did not grow up knowing how to manage money because I thought that it was normal to get your power disconnected. I thought it was normal to go hungry. It's like they just don't understand. Okay, so it's really, really hard, and I'm trying to be empathetic, right? Because I am empathetic and I am on the left and all of those sorts of things to struggle. But when I sit there and I see basically a rich kid who's had everything and all they're doing is finding something to complain about, I'm sorry. You know, like I grew up with these when I was at uni, like I was education. I ran in the student guild and I was in student politics, right? And I used to hang out with student politicians, right? Most of them were fucking rich. The rest of us had to make a living. I worked 2 jobs, right? And then I had a baby, so I had to drop out of student politics. But, you know, like I was sitting in the uni bar with these whinging rich cunts whose parents had paid their fees, whose parents paid their way through life, and they were just bitching and bitching and bitching. Right? Meanwhile, I'm sitting there fucking looking at my watch going, well, you're in the uni bar. I've got to go to work. You know, can we talk about this later? Right? Meanwhile, I've taken out a fucking, the supplement loan, right? Which is basically a scam, which is where you trade off half of your student allowance for double repayments later. Right? I still have crippling student debt at the age of 40 because I took out this heinous loan in order to get through university and graduate with an arts degree, right? Again, you could be someone who goes, oh, well, you made choices, but no, my degree was my way out of fucking poverty and my way out, okay? Otherwise, I'd be stuck. Anyway, this was supposed to be a funny story. It turned into a rant about the kids today. I'm just saying, this sets context. Because I want to start telling these stories because at the end of the day, I've got good stories. I'm 41 and now I'm starting to see things with distance, and I'm so grateful for some of the experiences that I've had because you know what? Like, fuck, they're funny. And I'm going to talk to you about my grandma, okay? Now, my grandma died in 2010. She had a hard life, man. If I could write a book about her life, like, you guys don't, like, she grew up in a fucking Irish convent, a Catholic, she was raised by nuns in the 30s, okay? Fucking, she during the fucking, you know, First World War, she was in a fucking Irish convent, okay? If you want some perspective. Her history was that her mum had 2 sons and it's sketchy because she didn't really talk about her childhood, but her mother died giving birth to her little sister when my grandmother was 7. Okay, her little sister died having her tonsils out. Okay, this is 90 years. This is not even 100 years. This is recent. Okay. Like, women, if you're a feminist, you need to listen to my fucking grandma's story and get some real fucking perspective on how women are treated, okay? Because my grandmother was a girl, so basically at the age of 7, her mother died. She also lost her little sister, okay? She had 2 older brothers. But her uncle basically decided to support the brothers and ship the girl off to a convent to be raised by nuns, okay? She didn't identify as a fucking woman. She was sent to a fucking convent to be raised by nuns, okay? They weren't that nice to her, and as a result, my grandmother was a tough fucking bird, and she was hard to love, and she loved hard, but she was a good person, okay? So... but she had a crazy sense of humour. She was nuts. So anyway, I was very close. Anyway, fucking listen to these stories are what matter, okay? This is how far women have come in a very short period of time. But she's Irish and she's fucking tapped in the head. Fucking funny. She's one of those people, and I think in retrospect, I'm very similar to her. I think she might have had a slight case of the autistics. You know, again, you know, when you get diagnosed with these things, you start to see the patterns in your own family. And, but she was one of those, she's like me, she's unintentionally funny at times. Okay. But, so let's get to the actual fucking video, Taya, 15 minutes in. Which was the fact that this is just an example, right, of how messing with a kid can be funny, right? I know I ramble on these things. And I know no one's really watching, so it's okay. But so I don't know. I really should stop trying to. This is how my stories go. This is why people fucking have to book 6 hours to talk to me, because I end up just fucking going off on tangents and giving background information that no one cares about. Anyway, this one might be something that might be worthy of a clip because it is a good story. If I ever get to a point where I can create an actual stand-up act, I have it written down, and a lot of it is around these kinds of fucking I was a weird kid stories and my weird childhood. That it's actually really funny as you get older. And the message is, okay, cut to the chase, Taya. The message of all of this stuff is that I was a weird kid. I had a hard life, but it's also still funny. And you can still come out the other side with fucking, dark shit and still laugh at life. And don't be a victim. Okay? So I was just sort of more recalibrating myself because I obviously got emotional about my grandma. So I was just taking a moment to fucking get my emotions in check before I told this funny story. So it was actually funny and didn't fucking, anyway. Yeah. So, okay. So she was a bitch in the best possible way, right? And obviously as a kid, I was bright. I was, had a bright future, but not a lot of sort of opportunity to do that, to achieve things. And also, in retrospect, it turns out that I was mildly on the autistic spectrum, so tended to be a bit more literal-minded. I'm still very vulnerable. Vulnerable? Gullible and vulnerable. I'm vulnerable to gaslighting and quite gullible. And I didn't learn that really. I just take people on face value, right? I've had to learn to be more skeptical as I get older, and this story is why, right? You build muscle, okay? Which is that, okay, so when I was, 7, thereabouts, 8, now one thing, okay, my family is a family of messer-withers, okay? So we all just talk shit, we make jokes. We're pretty upfront, we're up direct. Like most people sort of land into my family and we're open and honest. There's not really a lot of repression. If you're pissed off with each other, you say it, you deal with it. It's that kind of thing, right? It can be hard for someone like me who internalizes stuff and doesn't like, whatever. But so I was just a naive kid. Okay, I was just naive. I would take everyone on face value. I would believe everything people told me. I am prone to a salesperson. I'm, all that sort of stuff. It's why I'm so sensitive to a lot of this cult stuff, because I've had to build that muscle. But I think I was sitting there and it was around the dinner table, I think, and I was about 7 years old, and the family were riffing as they usually do. Okay, so they were just talking. And at some point in the conversation, my grandma was talking to me, and I was just saying something, and in passing, right, she thought she'd say something funny, right, which was that we were part of the we were part of the Smith's Chris family. Shut up. Okay, it's embarrassing. And that we were gonna all be rich when Mr. Smith died, right? She was fucking joking. She was having me on, right? But I was 7. I was autistic and 7, all right? She just said it as a joke, that kind of thing in passing. I've done that to my kids before where, in order to get out of a situation, once I told my son, right, that because he wouldn't get out of the beach, and it was like 7:30 at night, and we wanted to go, so I fucking in passing turned around and I said, we better go because the sharks are coming. Fucking 3 weeks later, I get a phone call from my ex going, what the fuck did you tell my son? Because now he thinks that the sharks come out of the ocean. Like, that's how kids are, right? They're naive. So she just in passing said that. And so I, went about my day thinking that I didn't think about it. She just said it and I went, oh, okay. I didn't know what that meant. I thought that, I was like, that's cool. I mean, my environment doesn't really indicate that, given that we live in fucking a poor person's house, and I didn't know I was poor. I was just fucking whatever. And but fast forward, I'm not kidding you. Fast forward, fucking 4-5 years. I think it was year 6. And I was at school and I started to get a bit of an attitude on me, because that's what happens when you turn, 10, 11, you hit the double digits and you think you know everything, right? And you're all full of attitude. And I was also smart, and I used to butt head with teachers, right? You can see why. Because I've always been a mouthy bitch. The teacher's nightmare, man. But anyway, I used to clash with... But this particular teacher was being particularly cunty, okay? And I can't even remember what it was. But basically, I get hauled in front of the... basically, I turn around and I told the teacher to fuck off. That I didn't need her fucking school. Because I was rich and I didn't fucking need that anyway, and I was smart enough to go, and she could go fuck herself. So I get hauled into the principal's office. As does my grandma and my dad. Because I've told my school principal and my teacher to go fuck themselves because I was going to inherit $120 million in the next fucking few years, and I didn't need any of this shit. Because I was going to inherit fucking $120 million from the Smith's Chris fortune. Right? That was pretty funny. See, the thing about my family is I didn't get in trouble. They just fucking laughed. Well, my grandma was just like, I said that in passing 5 years ago. And this kid, she doesn't realise, it's like, well, that was a moment that I realised that I was poor and that I actually had to work for things, and that was devastating. And that's also how I know that if I had been fucking rich, I would have, to quote Ricky Gervais, if I had been a Hampstead cunt, right, if I had inherited fucking money, I would have been unbearable. Like all of you other unbearable rich cunt kids. All right? I would have sat there inventing problems too. It was a hard day. Now, the irony of that is that my husband is actually, I think his mother is an Arnott, and actually a descendant of William Arnott from the Arnott biscuit family, right? So I wish my grandma was around to fucking meet him and my dad, and I wish my grandma was around to fucking see that come full circle where we saw a Smith and Arnott fucking family merger. Anyway, I don't know where that story was. I got to get better at delivering funny stories. I ended up sort of digressing into the bigger point, but without telling the actual story well. But it's just funny, right? I could only imagine what would happen today if I was in high school, right? And I had told there would have been fucking child protection involved. There would have been all sorts of people. There would have been all this stuff. There would have been a Twitter outrage because someone lied to their kid and made a joke to their kid and made them believe they were wealthy when they weren't. And it's like, no, it was a funny fucking story, right? My family used to roast us mercilessly, right? And on some, it was a little, there's a good kind of trauma. Because if they hadn't, I couldn't laugh now. I often think that, my autism was, it's interesting actually, having learned that I'm autistic, which is because on some level it was a protective layer against some of the bigger trauma, in the sense that I hadn't really no sense that what I was... I don't really have a danger chip, right? I don't understand situations. I didn't really understand a lot of stuff, right? And the stuff that happened to me, I just kind of had again, this could just be a fucking, what's it called? When you like get out of your body, whatever that's called. I can't remember. Starts with D. Dissociative. There we go. Into a dissociative state. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's actually just autism, right? Which is that when under stress, I've done this when I've been sick as well. Like I don't actually process things well. I'm really chill in a crisis because I actually do sort of head into a very calm, very logical, very clinical state. Okay. It makes me look cold sometimes, but actually it's not. It's just a switch. But so on one level, autism has created that protective layer. But on another, right, the trauma has helped the autism in a sense, because it's sort of my childhood gave me a bit of a trial by fire in the sense that I had to learn how to cope with people who didn't get me. You know, I had to learn to fucking build a bridge. And as much as I was upset about being sort of roasted and made fun of and all that sort of stuff, as an adult, I think it made me better, able and better equipped for the world, right? And so that's where I think it's an interesting idea. And I know that this got serious in a funny story. It's a stupid story, but it's got a bigger point, right? Which is rich kids are assholes. Even kids who think that they're going to be rich are assholes. Kids are assholes, and we should roast them as much as possible, okay? I'm not talking about we shouldn't fucking hit kids or whatever or abuse them, but a little gentle nudge and a bit of a roast, right, is fine. They need it, okay? They need to be brought down a peg or two. This is how we've created this situation, is this fucking pandering. Anyway. The Arnott's thing was a really nice little fucking punchline to my life. The fact that I actually married a legitimate, he's not an heir, like obviously the money, like that was sold off years ago and stuff. But it is actually very funny that he's a legitimate, if there was the family money, he'd be on the fucking heir. Yeah, right? It's great. I think it's 4 greats or 5 great grandfather was William Arnott, right? And it's a very proud family thing. It's just a funny footnote to me because I legit thought that I was. There's so many jokes in it. Like, I only married Paul for the never-ending packet of Tim Tams. He hasn't delivered, and I don't like Tim Tams because they make me throw up. But anyway. I don't know what this was supposed to be a short stream, and I ended up spending 15 minutes making all serious. I need to get better. Like, this is where I need to start writing actual fucking jokes down. This is just me talking. But that's where I see a lot of this stuff, which is where I go, you know what, like, yes, and I've got now myself an autistic child, right? And, well, you know, maybe more than one. And let's just say that the autism gene is strong in my lineage and family. Okay, there's some strong personalities in our fucking house. Let's put it that way. Okay, whether or not it's actual diagnosis or disability is remains to be seen. But there's some strong-willed people in our house, and some literal-minded people. But I see this from both sides, which is that urge to shield and protect, right? I actually have to homeschool my son because mostly because the school is fucking useless. Let's not get there. No one gives a fuck about him, right? Like I was saying this morning, why this gender shit is a priority suddenly for public schools when they're just fucking channeling and siphoning resources for kids with severe fucking problems. Because a fucking teenager with blue hair has decided that they need a fucking, no. It's nonsense. Anyway, it makes me fucking mad as well, which is I get to see how few resources are dedicated to kids who actually fucking need help. Not kids going through a fucking normal teenage identity crisis trying to figure out who they are, like every fucking teenager ever has. right? Just because there's more hair dye colours available and different shades of eyeliner. Fucking undercuts were fashionable when I was a kid too, you stupid fucks. They've come back around. It didn't mean that we were boys. Anyway. This is a clusterfuck. Anyway, but I'm just saying, so I see that with my own kids, which is that thing where, like, I will not tiptoe around my son, okay? I will accommodate for him. He needs accommodations. He needs understanding, right? He needs to be managed, right, for lack of a better word, okay? But I fucking roast the shit out of him. And he roasts the shit out of me. Right? Because I'm thinking 10 years in the future when the world isn't nice to him and he can use humour. Like one thing that he does do is he does gaming streams and he roasts the shit out of other kids and he's actually funny. I think that he's got some sort of career or something in comedy, right? Because he's actually very funny. But that's what you do. He's learning how to cope in the world, which isn't very nice. And the only way there's two ways to cope in this world, which is to fucking laugh at it and laugh at everything, or to end up on fucking numbing tablets that fucking make you feel nothing, okay? And that's not an existence. Like I come off of those things as much as I can. I've just come off again. And as I've said to Paul, right, I would much rather have to deal with, sorry, I've got really fucking itchy nose today. I would much rather feel and have to deal with some of that sort of intense anxiety and have to pop Valium, like the occasional Valium, than feel nothing. Like feeling nothing is the worst, okay? You need the highs and the lows. And, we are robbing children of the lows and as a side effect of that, robbing them of the highs because you do not know joy until you know sadness. And you don't know what you have. You can't be grateful until you've lost. Okay? You just can't. Right? I am only grateful for the husband that I've got because of the fucking bad relationships that I've had in the past. Adversity is what makes you grateful. Okay? And that's why we've got a generation of people who are completely ungrateful. They might do a gratitude journal, right? But it's all just virtue signalling because they don't know what to be grateful for because they've been given everything and tiptoed around and they've got access to a block button. Like, have you ever seen, like, there's people that just, you can't send these kids out into the world thinking that they can control everything around them. You don't, of course they're ungrateful because they haven't experienced anything. They haven't experienced like adversity or loss. You only appreciate the good when you fucking suffered or lost. And that's why I am actually immensely, as much as I bitch and moan, I am immensely grateful for everything. Right? I am, like I said, I whinge and I say, like, I've still got a fuck ton of student debt. Right? I'm immensely grateful for the fact that I have, benefited from a, traditionally good, decent welfare system, free healthcare, good education, even though I told them to fuck off, right? Even though I bitch about the student debt, right? And even though I bitch about the taxes and I have to work twice as hard as anyone else for the rest of my life, I pay a penalty for being born out of the wrong vagina every fucking day, okay? That said, I'm grateful, right? I'm grateful for every client that to this day, right? I'm still grateful for everyone that hires me. I'm grateful for every opportunity that I'm given because I have experienced the alternative, okay? I've experienced, and that's why I think I've been so stressed this last year is because also the work is starting because there's a chill over me still because I've started speaking my mind and people, whatever, don't care. But, I'm grateful for those that do back me. So anyway, stop whinging about what you don't have and focus on what you do. And I don't know what the story is. And also, if anyone tells you that you're the heir to a fortune, Ask for the documents. And also, think about your own family and don't be so hard on them. Don't be so hard on them. Everyone does the best they can. All right. I love you. Thank you for your precious life seconds. I got to go do some work. If you want to support me and this fucking waffle, then go to tayasmith.com.au, usual places, or you can, so you can email me. Depends if you want to support me there, or you want to book me for digital consulting, which is what I do. You know the drill. The information's on my website that, easily linked. I love you. Have a great day. Bye.